All right, man. Let's go ahead and get get a little looks on some stocks this Sunday. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go over the past four stocks that I went over last Sunday, and all four of them are tending to do very well. The only one we're probably still waiting on is Qualcomm, but Tesla, SpaceX, and Hood, those three they all did extremely well. Especially Tesla, good recovery. SpaceX kind of been up and down, and Hood made a nice pop to $100. So far, last four stocks are doing fairly well. This week is going probably gonna consist of the same ones. I'm just adding MU and Google. So, all right. First off, let's go ahead and check out both SPY and Qs. Now, last week was kind of choppy. Would you guys agree? You know, for the first part of the week, it kind of pissed everybody off. It wasn't really dumping, wasn't really popping. We were just stuck in a crazy range. So, um, this week we're probably gonna have some of the same issues. I'm not gonna lie. Um, we are extremely ready to pop higher, but I think that the drop could be just as extreme also. Just because between these two levels, this blue and this purple, those are my oversold levels. And a lot of the times, the market has been moving on probably low volume or um, just news anticipation because it doesn't really have a reason to drop just yet. Um, so we're just kind of in a period of just sideways chop. You feel me? So I built these little crazy projection levels over the weekend. It's kind of cool. It gives us these orange projections as far as the direction of where we're headed right now. So of course they're gonna switch on different time frames, but since I've been trying them out and using them, I've been able to make some good calls starting from the 30-minute and working my way up to the 4 hour frame. So I'm gonna kind of use these to explain what we're doing right now also. With the spot right now, as you can see, we're holding a 30-minute trend straight up, and it's still chopping its way up to 785 very slowly, but it's still being able to maintain this little uptrend that it has. So, um, like I said, if we get below this bottom trend right here, then that's when we can see a pop down to this 768 before we start to kind of round off and chop within this next range. So we're still in the uptrend right now. Still in the uptrend, still chugging his way up. Mostly because semiconductors have been doing very well over the past week. We've been seeing video pop. We've been seeing MU do a little something. AMD's coming back to life. So we've been seeing some good movement within the semiconductors that's been contributing and holding the market up in this limbo. Um, So this is one thing that I did see Friday on the 4 hour candle. We did get this engulfing candle right here. Boom. Here we go right here. So what I'm going to be watching for as far as SPY goes is to see if we can take out these highs right here. So because this is a bearish engulfing, and if you're new, bearish engulfing pretty much means when the current candle completely swallows the highs and the lows of the previous candle before. So since we have saw that, that means a lot of the buyers stepped out right here. And now we're trying to see if we can make this trend back up towards 778.84 and then break that to invalidate what we have right now. But when we do see, or at least when I see a 4 hour engulfing candle, whether it's bullish or bearish, I normally take precautions and start the trade in the following direction of this candle. So I would look for rejections here at this candle's lows, at this candle's highs right here. And then once it gets above here, then that's when everything starts to get a little weak and we can start seeing things rotate to break out. But As of right now, I'm looking in between these two prices. Let me mark those two. This candle right here before the big red candle. I'm looking at those and then I'm working my way in on a 30 minutes. So this is what we're looking at. How I just placed those 2 points right there. Well, 3 points. This is inside of this trend right here and it's working its way up, but it's all going to be considered rejection spots until we can get out of here. So tomorrow, if we keep going to the upside, we could definitely see everything start to range in between 778 and 776 for SPY. Okay. And that's just because that's the highest place. That's the peak where the bears actually took control on that medium time frame, on that medium 4 hour time frame. So that's what I'm watching for tomorrow. We still may chop. It just may be in the sideways range until we break above 778. I wouldn't really take puts or calls simply because lately both sides been getting burned. You might get a nice move within the first 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes of the market, but after that, it's been sideways consolidation for the rest of the day. Um, Let me see. This was Monday. Monday we did a bunch of chopping. Didn't really, bulls or bears didn't win, just a bunch of chopping. And then Tuesday we started off very quickly with a drop. Then it consolidated before it popped back up. And then Wednesday, we didn't do much of anything, just sideways consolidation. And then here we go, Thursday. We got a nice gap up and pop, and then it chopped the rest of the day, all the way through the rest of the week. So, like I said, Monday, expect this consolidation here. If we can break out, then we'll keep riding this up. We'll be looking for this 785 target. If we break down and start to roll over these trends, these orange projections should start running sideways, and we'll see a rotation back to the downside towards 768. Okay, and I think these projections are pretty cool. Like I was looking at Bitcoin, and it was just showing me why prices have not really been moving in either direction as of lately. And then you can see how the orange projection lines give us a sideways kind of downwards trend, not very steep, but it is in a downwards trend. So, and I'm actually surprised Hood worked out as good as it did with Bitcoin being kind of sideways into the downside, but it's been holding this 6,200 level fairly well. So, um, I still like some of the crypto stocks. We just need to see Bitcoin make a better push. It really needs to get up above this 65, 66,000 range in order to really, really start making some pushes back up towards 70K. But I'm liking the way that Hood performed past week with the way that crypto's also been moving. So let's look at NQ real quick. Technology. Beast, what's up, my boy? Glad to see you popping in. Naomi, Forward, Kevin, Alex. What's up, y'all? I'm glad to see everybody hopping in. All right, so let's look at NQ. And NQ has been having a pretty good week. Like I said, because of the semiconductors, we got Nvidia earnings is right around the corner. You feel me? So, of course, the Qs and technology have been having a nice pop. I think the last 2 weeks I've been saying SMH, which is the ETF for the semiconductors, have been doing fairly well. So going into this week, the Qs actually have a respectable uptrend. That's you know that's respectable. Back when I was looking at SPY, I was showing you guys how SPY is actually in a overbought zone above the blue and between the purple, blue and purple. Yellow, white, yellow, those are all my transitional levels to the upper to the downside. All right. So when I go and I look at NQ, All I see is we have a few rejection spots. So this is the wall right now that we're trying to overcome. If we can break this wall right here and get into this 30,000, mid 30,000 level, then that's when we can actually see things start moving and we pop, and then we see NQ into is overbought levels. So Qs are not there right now, which is why we're kind of seeing the decoupling of SPY and NQ, simply because of the makeup holdings have been shifted. Qs being heavily semiconductors, since they're just not starting to have a real run, and we've been seeing a lot of the chip stocks kind of run sideways to the downside. Now that they're moving back up, we got room for the Qs to actually make a move. So, like I said, if they pop up in here, and if I stretch this purple box out a little bit, you can see that this has been a long time chop zone where we've been seeing prices start rejecting and eventually give up. Well, we're heading back to that now. All right, we got a clean uptrend headed straight up to that. Even the projection zones, 4 hour projection zones are pointing to the upside. If we go to the 1 hour, it's pretty much using the projection zones as support levels. And then if we go to the 30 minute, like I said, this one's slightly leaning to the downside, but everything's still pointing to a bullish breakout. As long as none of these start leaning down, then we're good. We can keep expecting this to pop. Now, Nvidia earnings is on the 26th. Yeah, Wednesday the 26th. So we still got about a week before that comes along. But with the look at Nvidia, it's been rejecting pretty hard at 226. So it's it's kind of hard to say what's gonna happen right now with Nvidia, because now we're heading into the time frame to where we're gonna start seeing some of these premiums get juiced up, and everything starts to kind of not make any sense anymore with the price action. I went out to the biggest frame that I normally chart from, which is the daily, to see if I see anything that could hint towards more consolidation. I don't really see anything, um, but we do have a slight gap down here between let's see, 216 and 213. So you don't want to put that like towards the first of our minds to say, all right, this is where this price is going, simply because during the time earnings start trickling around, nothing really makes sense as far as the technical analysis point stands. Only thing you really can rely on are like, your support and resistance. But as far as the time frames, those really don't happen because everything starts to get in anticipation of which way a stock's going to head post earning. So right now, I wouldn't look to take any calls above 226, simply because it's been rejecting. It's considered one of my peak points. And in between the blue and the purple, let's just go back and highlight that. These are ranges for all-time highs. So we have to start thinking, all right, when does this stock want to start hitting all-time highs? Is it before or after earnings? And this is where the shit start getting tricky. Okay. You can see majority of the price action didn't survive long once it got up here towards these 240 levels. And I got a peak right here, 241 right now, 241.82. So just know, if it gets into this purple and it starts chugging along and it seems like it doesn't want to come down at no reason, for no reason, start playing. You can play calls safely, light calls, light 240 calls. All right, because once it gets up in here and it starts getting oversold, I mean overbought, people are gonna automatically start to look to play puts, and they're gonna burn you. The same way we're watching spot trade sideways at these higher levels, we're gonna see Nvidia do the same thing and slowly chug its way up, leading to earnings in about a week. But if we never break this 226, then that's when we'll start to see, all right, they probably gonna start dropping this to lead up to the earnings move for the pop back up here. Investors are gonna want to get in cheap because this is probably gonna hold the market up for the rest of the year or something like that. So this 226.50 level is very important for Nvidia just to see how things are gonna play out. So we got an upper projection on the daily. Like I said, I do like that. And everything below that is still pretty much an uptrend. So yeah. So this is what I would be watching for. Any price action that comes down here between 220 and 217.44. This is the dip that I would probably feel most safe buying on the way back up towards 226, because if it gets back up, if we catch the dip and get back in it down here and it breaks out towards 226, we got in early and we probably won't see 220 to 217 until earnings, uh till earnings or after earnings. So this is like an easy way to catch the premium pops, kind of like I did with Palantir. We held it for about 2 or 3 days, never had to really get out of it because that was the last time that we really seen those contracts at those particular prices. So my out the money strike is going to be the 240s, because that'll give it an opportunity for the Greeks to really work along with it, because it's a possibility it's going to go into money by that time. And we want to go beyond the expiration date. I mean, beyond the ER date. So if it's on the 26th, I'll look at the 28th expirations and I will look at 240. All right, so let me get rid of some of these. All right, so these are August 28th NVIDIA calls at the 240 strike price. All right, and these are the prices that it's been pinging back and forth between. So as of right now, the prices are tending to be holding 245. So if I'm if I'm looking to get into calls or into these contracts, you see that 245 is pretty much discount prices. With this gap right here on these contracts, this is where it gapped up that day. So it's an empty hole right now on these contracts between 162 and 185. Problem is Nvidia dumped after their earnings. Well, we just gonna have to see how it's gonna play out. Sometimes they have decent ones, and sometimes I've seen Nvidia have about two good earnings pops, and then the other times like it was either flat to burn both sides or a dump. So, but we do have a gap right here on these contracts between 160 and 185. At times, it does like a chop back to the downside and actually fill the gaps before the next extreme pop, because we've seen it down here. Once the contracts pop, it trickled back down to eventually fill it. Everybody got in that wanted to get in, and then it made another pop in order to push these prices back up to 340. So the best risk to reward right now would probably be below 245, and to see if contracts can get back down around this 180-ish level, which would be beautiful to buy these, hold for the premium pops. And then once we get in there, then we'll see the money actually flow into these contracts. If you don't want to hold them going into earnings, you can sell them. You can sell them. That way you don't have to risk any IV crush afterwards. But if you get in and you hold them through there, earnings on the 26th, these are good through the 28th, and it continues to chug along. Like I said, we just caught these contracts at the cheapest that they're going to be at. If this slow sideways chop happens this week and the contracts drop. If the market drop, Nvidia drops just a little bit, just enough to get these contracts around these price ranges, but it doesn't fall as hard as the rest of the market, because it's going to be one of those stocks that's going to be priced up. I mean, propped up. You feel me? So As of right now, this is what I would want to see. This is the game plan for Nvidia. Actually, see the prices for these drop below 245. I know the bulls hate hearing me say that. We don't want to see the price drop. Just going off of the chart, that's what would make the most sense in order to keep the price action fluid leading up to earnings. You don't want to see too much rallying because it won't give you an opportunity to get in these contracts um, before the expensive prices get come into fruition. So um, like I said, we see the prices kind of chop, maybe a slight dip to get these at some good entry prices below 185, and then eventually you're gonna see them price back in, move back up to 340, 390, and this is where majority of the money stops flowing into these contracts once it gets up to about 400. So let's see how these play out. It should be fairly interesting, even if they kind of lull everything sideways. It is still kind of shift the prices a little bit. So um, let's look at AMD. That was one of our Friday plays. Worked out amazingly. Like we saw 30% is where I got out at. And then some of you guys held and y'all saw those contracts hit 95% before close. Crazy, right? Google got you interested. We'll check out Google too. Nice. Nice. So we played AMD, like I said, Friday, and it was around right at 500. I wasn't paying much attention to it until I saw that it was at 500. I'm like, okay, AMD popped back up. Is at 500. It's holding. Rest of the market's kind of, choppy, but it's back in a 500 club. Which one do I got? I turned too many. All right. So we're back in the 500 club. All right, cool. So AVGO is on your radar. Be careful on AVGO. I looked at it too. Be careful on it because it might be one of those ones that might lag as far as semis go, just to keep the actual ticker in check because of the volatility. So just be careful on the calls on AVGO right now, and I'll look at it and explain why, but we'll see. All right, so right now we're pushing up 518. Beautiful $4 gap up if you swung AMD over the weekend right now. Beautiful. Hopefully it holds. I'm not gonna chase it, but I know some of you guys are already in it. We'll see how the contracts are gonna be performing um, after we break this chart down real quick. All right, so this is where we at right now. This gap up that we saw over here, this is where we're pushing into up to 518.87, which is the tip top of this drop right here. If we can manage to get above here and make this the top of this 518, we can make this some support in order to make the next move up to 536. That'll constitute as a nice little breakout. HPE later, I got you. But this will constitute a nice breakout, and then we're gonna face this wall between 536 and 564. That's where our next fight would be. As you can see, go back and look. This is where a lot of the rejection took place before it finally decided to boom, drop, and take a lot of the money out of it. So this has been a nice dip. This has been a nice dip for bulls to start to try to reset in order to get this pushed back up to 565. All right, so support levels right now that I'm watching are going to be these two white lines, 504 and 499. Like I said, we held 500 extremely well. Are we going to see it going into tomorrow or even this week? I'm not sure. I don't think so. It might be one of these outperformers this week. And Friday was probably the only real opportunity that a lot of people was going to have to get into these contracts fairly cheap. So the 4 hour looks interesting as far as the trend goes. These are still kind of aiming to the downside, which means we could get a little action where we kind of go sideways once we kind of peak out and we go back toward these trends of 504 to 499. And it could give us the opportunity to still rotate these contracts out the money contracts going into the rest of the year. So just this week, I'm thinking 536 will be our ceiling if we want to squeeze out here in 518. And then from there, we could see an eventual decline, which we have seen over the past couple of weeks. We get the nice pop, slow decline, pop, decline, pop, decline, pop, decline. So here we are with the pop. Let's see what happens in this area right here. And then we'll see whenever, if we start to get this decline back to 500s. Okay. Let's look at the 536 contracts. And I'm just gonna go to the 20 21st. Let's see. Yeah. Let's look at the 21st. Just because AMD, you can make a lot of money with not a lot of money on AMD because of the volatility. 536. We look at the 535. Yeah, see, so look how cheap the look how cheap these contracts got over the past weeks. 218. That was the floor. They end up closing Friday at 825. These $200 contracts can get really expensive real quick. And these are the lot of things. These are the contracts that I normally be shooting for. I don't know if you guys seen Cal in the chat in the King's Chamber chat. Bro made a killing off of Tesla calls because he got in on a 340 calls when it was super cheap. Took he waited through the pop, swung to the next day, the gap up, the 340s went in the money. Bro went from he had like $100 worth of he got those 340 calls when it was at 104, which was the original signal. He held them and sold them at like $900 a piece. So I'm always looking for attainable out the money strike prices, but they have the possibility to still go in the money and really get that delta popping. You know what I'm saying? To outweigh that theta for them being short. So the combinations are deadly once you get the Greeks in the right place. And once the move happens and they run beyond that strike price, oh, that's all your money. You start catching that delta pop. They tip out, you sell them, and you good for the week. So I'm hoping AMD would be one of these that we got in super early. These are the 535 calls. They started around 200. Um, I actually signaled Friday. It wasn't the 535. It was the 550 calls for 821. And they closed at 98%. So the ones that I actually signaled were right here. They got down as low as 137. I signaled these at 222. So when I decided to get in, they were right there. And this is how I look for my risk to reward. I find the chop zone, and then the day that those stocks start to pop, or I start seeing a little promise in the upside movement, I go ahead and take it when they're trading in between these. When I have my stop loss set, it'd be normally I try to do 20%. And if it stops out, then I'll catch it when it comes back down here towards 140. And the reason why I do it like that, I know you can hold and be able to just average down, but bro, I move all day. I can't really watch the stuff, watch contracts as closely as I want to. Sometimes the limit orders don't trigger. We saw that with I think Nvidia. I had a limit order set for 95 or 98, never triggered, and the contracts ran $200, $300 that day. So you can't always depend on the limit orders, but um, I like to get in. If I get stopped out, I like to re-enter at the next leg down. Get in there so that way I don't have to worry about stop losses at that point. So we got in here at 244. That was right on the breakout, and then those contracts pops going into the end of the day, which was a beautiful move. If this gap up holds tomorrow, then we should see a nice pop in those contracts also. Yeah. So it's already at 519 AMD. So we decide to continue to break out, like I said, see a nice move toward the upside, and we want to look at this like 535 as the actual ceiling, or this little zone right here at 529, 530, which was the last peak before the prices started to decline drastically. So let's see how that shit plays out tomorrow. 519.61. That should be a nice open, which uh we may be able to take profits if we in, but we'll just have to see how extended those contracts are in the morning once the market opens. All right, so um Kevin said Google has him interested. I see what Google talking about, and I like Google. Swing, she made it. Good morning. All right, so Google actually took a nice hit this past week. Pretty interesting, but I think this is a great opportunity for bulls to get back in extremely cheap. Google's been one of those rinse and repeat plays. They drop it super quick, and next thing you know, it's exploding to the upside. Like here we are, they dropping it from 375 all the way down to 315 in probably like a week and a half or so, and then recovered that in maybe a week. So it's always hard to count Google out. At times, it may have these drastic movements to where it's actually getting money pulled out of it, and now we're seeing the chop. But let's see what they give us this week. Like I said, I'm still a Google bull for right now. I don't think that prices are gonna stay cheap too long. We'll just have to see how everything plays out. It looks like we're going into a chop on the 4 hour between this 345 and up here at 356. That's where we could see some chop going on at. So let's look at the day. Yeah. So even the 4 hour and the daily charts, they're kind of showing chop. Like I said, we kind of got this expanding broadening pattern is what they call it. But where prices can chop in between here until it decides to break out. And the top of that broadening pattern usually is going to be your old support zones. So you see how that extends. We got support here, support here, support here before the flush. And that lines up with the top of this broadening pattern right here, microphone, whatever you want to call it. That's how prices can chop. And if we go to the daily to look at how it's working on there, the daily is actually going to count this as the projections. It's going to be a breakout. It can be a breakout and serve as support at 353 and work its way back up. So they're trying to get their calls cheap right now for Google at 345. Out the money strikes. Let's see what these other ones got. Let's see what levels are being respected. All right, so we lost all control below 365. And then the next wave dropped below 354. Here we are recovering. So if we wanted to be first wave in the money, we'll probably do 355 calls. If you wanted to catch that first wave of being in the money. All right, so these contracts are already, the money's drained out of them, which is a good thing. Because you know it's not gonna go to zero unless Google dumps more. And since we just got done looking at the chart and it's been showing us that it's trying to recover some. These contracts have been holding up extremely well around $155. So that'll be my entry point for Google calls on into this upcoming week. 150, $160. That way we can kind of stomach. Say we get in at 160, we can stomach $20. Losing $20, $30, just for it to go back to break even, and then the catalyst pops it up even more. The same thing I did with AMD. You look for the consolidation if we see the pop tomorrow. So you know that the prices, you can see that the prices are typically chopping in between 155 and 315. This would be your high spot zone for these 355 calls. And if they pop, then you can go ahead and ride these into the sunset up to 355. So I think Swing said she can confirm holding and thought they'd be dumping with the Q's Friday and they barely moved. Exactly. All the money has been pulled out of it pretty much, and they are anticipating to move back up to 355. So these are gonna be the strike prices. This is where you want to hop in. These calls between 315 and $155, and then from there you can kind of manage your own risk to reward. You feel me? If you don't mind getting it at 315 and taking the chance at averaging down at 160 or so, then that's your averaging down. But if you just want to wait, take a couple of calls, two or three contracts, then I would say wait until it gets below like 200, 225. Stomach some of this pain if you can, and then take the ride back up, either later on in the day tomorrow or Tuesday, and let them run through the end of the week. Because these contracts were sitting at $1,000 on a 26. So just a week ago, I said on the 26th, I'm tripping. On the 7th, August 7th, these were just sitting at $1,000. You had a gap right here. It came down, buys the end, and now it's time to move. It's time to make a nice move. So Google 355s, and what was that other? What was that other one that we looked at? 365. And the 365s, they might be so cheap that you can actually add an extra week to it if you want to, and probably pay the same price. And since Google is one of the ones that move like that, all right, so yeah, these contracts right here have been holding at $55. So like, if I would have saw this Friday, this would probably be one of these moves where you'll see me grab like three contracts, three, four, just to take the premium pops to the upside, just so you guys can make some quick money. But of course, the way that the market's set up, the way that these short expiration dates, yes, a week is considered short expiration, but the way it's set up, the longer it stays out the money, the harder the price has to move for these to actually make some nice profits. Okay, so with that being said, with them being $55, we probably can add some extra time and go to the 28 and look at 365 and see how they pricing. So beautiful. All right. So we go and add another week and they damn near the same price as This week's 355. It's crazy, right? But when you study the actual prices of the contracts, you're not just trading blindly. You get to find these fire ass discounts like this. So looking at 365 calls for not this week but the following Friday, the support is sitting right at the same price as the last contracts, the 355s for this week. You can buy these between 155, yeah, 155 and 315 and ride these all the way back up to the upside if the volatility comes back into Google these next 2 weeks. Turn 150 to $300 into $1,000 or 1,200 in 2 weeks. Everything just has to work in your favor, but this is another Tesla play, potential AMD play. If you was in ExxonMobil a couple of weeks ago when I was calling out the 160 contracts, that's one of these plays. SpaceX when it went to 149 Thursday, and we was getting in at 115, 120. We are finding contracts at stupid low prices, and in a week's time, they're going into 1,000% profits. We did it with Nvidia the first time. So 365 calls August 28th. We'll look for entries between 315 and 155. Beautiful, beautiful opportunity to hold these for the next 2 weeks if the money flows back into Google. Gio just said great call on SpaceX. Man, it was a crazy move. And the thing is, we kept getting in. We kept being able to see opportunities to get in below $100 on those. Sells off one day, explodes the next day. It's been a rinse and repeat for the past week and a half. All right, so here's your game plan on Google: 365, 2 weeks out, or 355, 1 week out. What makes more sense is the 365 2 weeks out because they're going to be the same price. You're going to get better Greeks. The delta is going to be steady. The theta is going to be lower. You're going to be able to tolerate holding it for a longer time because you're going to have that opportunity for it to go back in the money. All right. So that's the game plan for Google. And let's look at HPE for my boy Beast. I'm still wondering if HPE is gonna have one of those Dell type moments. I remember when Dell was like, it was what around like $100, and I think now it's probably close to a $300 stock or so. All right, so this is HPE had a crazy pop. Now you see what happened once it gets in the purple. It's overbought. So calls right now, it'll make that movement, but the catalyst has to continue to feed the fire. If it runs out of exciting catalyst news, then you will continue to see the prices trade to the downside because the initial pop, it gave it what it needed just to show you where it's going, and now they're gonna keep it sideways and dropping it so they can start loading the boat on the way back up to 62. So on the cow side of things right now, just be careful. You can take the small pops between like 58 and 59. Um, but I wouldn't really trust it until 54ish. And only reason why I say that is because it didn't really breathe anywhere in between there, between what's this, 55 and 58. It didn't really do much breathing. So it squeezed out all the opportunities. And right now it's just running into a couple of rejection spots. So I don't really see anything. It's entering back into support zones right here on a daily time frame. See how the reds finally, that candle's finally starting to dip into the bulls here. So you're right on that finding support. We just have to see how aggressive the fight's gonna be within this green candle right here. All right. What you don't want to do is see it gap down any because it's gonna make the sell off even a bit more drastic. Um, sad things. All right, so now that I added my projections on the charts, you can kind of see, you know, it can trade up in here, but at any time it can break that trend right here and start falling back into it. This is on the 30 minutes, so we don't have much support on the 30-minute outside of this trend right here, which is pretty tight right now. If we go to the 1 hour, like I said, still zone. This zone right here is still opportunity for it to chop sideways and make small attempts up. But if it still breaks below the structure, it's still a long way down between the next projection zone and on the 4 hour, it gets a little wider, but you still can see the support really doesn't have a good support zone until it gets back down towards 54. And then this one's way down here at 50. So, and the reason why the projections are like that simply because the price moves so quick. Um, it's a bit of a delay in finding the structure as it rises, but it eventually catch up. So, like I said, anything right now is kind of a roll of the dice, in my opinion, simply because it can make these moves up, but the rug can be pulled from underneath it at any time and make that sharp move to just fill this 55 gap right here, 55 to 54 dollar gap. All right. Geo said AVGO. He was watching them, and I was a little skeptical on AVGO. It's making a nice recovery now, so that's good. And Beast, I seen you said APLD. Yeah, Applied Digital. Yeah, we check them out too. But this is why I'm kind of skeptical right now on AVGO because it could possibly be one of those laggards for semis right now. All right, so let's look at the day. All right, so on the daily chart, look at the big crazy red dip that we saw. J Loco, what's up, man? Welcome in. But we saw crazy big drop on the daily. Bulls gave up a lot of room. They gave up a lot of territory. All right, and they came down to fill this gap. All right. So now that it's filled this gap, we're gonna want to see how much fight the Bulls have left in them before they can really take out these highs or retest these highs. And this probably is the weekly highs too. Now the weekly highs are actually so previous week's highs are actually way up there at 432. That's where it started. We ended right here. All right, so I'm just gonna mark previous days, and this is something that you can do in order just to see whether a stock is actually making um, higher highs, lower highs, or it's just stagnant. Great Ripple, what's going on, man? Glad to see you in here. Welcome, welcome. How you a seat? So right now, what we doing? We're just tracking, to see how the higher highs or higher lows or whatever is panning out. Family night, exactly. I'll beat y'all ass in dominoes another night, or Uno, or whatever you want to hop on. I can't play spades though. I'm not a spades player. Options trading earlier. Oh, I didn't even know that. So they moved the time. Well, I promise you, some of the times we seen in the market, we used to wish for that shit when I first started trading. You never played domino. What? Oh my God. It's an amazing game of counting. Geo, I grew up watching my family play Tonk, man. It was crazy, but it almost got violent sometimes, if you know what I mean. When the cards get to slamming, stuff get real. Look, we gonna finish this conversation up. Uh, let's finish up this, and then I'm gonna get real with y'all in the chat. Watch, but let's watch out for AVGO. Like I said, we got a crazy red candle, and we filled that gap down to 392. So right now we're just gonna see how everything plays out. If we can make our way back up. Now you see this gap that we have up here. This is how the market plays the game. They run it down real quick to fill a gap. They create one, and now we see the prices chop here. Once it runs back up to 416, and then the prices might go back up here, and then decide to roll its way back down. All right, so definitely keep a watch on that. Like I said, I wouldn't play too much into it. I got too many levels on because them levels not even good yet. Let's do the five, the four. Okay, the five and the three be good. But yeah, it's trying to go ahead and attempt to make some support. Right now, what I like, the levels that I like is at 381 and 378 because that's what we saw majority of the price action hold up back here. Um, all the projection levels are showing like everything's a downtrend right now below 410. So it's kind of showing like a 405 rejection, possibly into this little pattern right here. And it's a very, very tight uptrend. If we hold this line right here up towards 405, that's a very, very dangerous uptrend. Okay, because it can fade back below this trend right here and dump back down at any time. So Kingdom Poker Night, that'd be fun. And yeah, dominoes, I break a table if I got the right hand. But if we go to the 4 hour, like I said, it's a very dangerous uptrend. We could chop in between here at any given time. It can fall, but if it does tend to maintain prices and use 395 as support, then what we'll actually see is this uptrend actually hold and level out. So that'll actually be decent because boy, I just be mixing colors on. But we'll see the support hold up, and then we'll see prices ride this trend right here and make a slow chop up to fill this gap up here at 413. Okay, so if I had to go with a strike price, I would I would go with maybe like a 415 this week. And the reason why I say this week is simply because I wouldn't put a whole lot of money into AVGO when I know that it's been weak to the upside. But I wouldn't put too much money into the downside either, simply because um, that's August 17th. I wouldn't put too much money in the downside simply because I know that the bulls have been there for semiconductors lately. All right, so look at these 415 calls. These actually would be pretty dope. I would take these. Um, these are the 415 calls. They flushed, absolutely flushed below 850 and they closed at $180. All right. You might have to sit on these for a day or two, but eventually they should pop back up to the $700 mark. That's a $600, $700, well, $500 ish return whenever the volume flows back into these contracts. If the uptrend comes back to life, $100 goes to 1135 very quick. So um, I would be careful on AVGO calls. If I had to play it to the upside, it would be a 415 below $200, simply because a lot of money was pushed out of these calls extremely quickly. I wouldn't throw a whole lot of money into it because you don't want to get burned. At least if you get burned on $200, it's just 200 instead of 600 or 700. You feel me? I aim for a majority of my plays to be under $200, just because honestly, options trading, it doesn't deserve that much of you guys' money because it plays too many games. You know, some days it's up, some days it's down. The theta kicks in. Honestly, options trading isn't worth, it shouldn't be worth too much of you guys' money. If you're gonna do anything with it, invest it. Buy some shares, buy some dividend stocks. It shouldn't be, we shouldn't have to be spending, or you shouldn't be spending X amount of dollars unless it's leaps. If you're gonna spend $500, $600, go buy some out the money leaps for, some good stocks. So um if you're gonna lose money, at least lose 200 with me, because you can lose 200 with me one day, and next day we'll fucking hit 800, 900 out for the same amount. So um this is how we'll go with AVGO. 415 calls below 200. If we scroll back to the chart real quick, if it does gap up, or this gap up holds, that'll be a nice little confirmation pop. Like I said, we really want to get back above 400 to really see these things perform how we want and make this move back up to 417. All right. Um, Somebody else has said something. APLD, Applied Digital. All right. Applied Digital is making a nice pop. It's up, what, 40 cents overnight. We'll see how that holds up going into the market tomorrow. Pivotal zone look like it needs to go ahead and get above here. This resistance zone. So it needs to get above 3165. And we can ride this trend right here that it has on the 1 hour, 32, 3360 up to 3574. We see the combination of blue and red, which means this where um bears should be in heavy. Okay. So like I said, let's go to the 4 hour, see what type of trend. So even the 4 hour has a pretty dope trend up. Nice little triangle pattern. It taps out right when it breaks out to the 3574 mark, and the daily might show a bit of the same thing. It'll chop between 32 and 33. And if it breaks out above here, that's when we see the spike up to 35. So as far as the intraday trend, I'm liking it. I want to see us hold this uptrend right here, even if we ride this little trend a little bit and slowly work its way up to pop to 33. That'd be nice. You'll get that easy uptrend. And like I said, if we can break out above that, then we should see 35.74 in the upcoming weeks. If we look at some contracts, 28.35 strike. There it is still right now. $35 calls. They look good below 65. They've gotten it down as low as down to 38. Around 65 or below is beautiful entry. You shouldn't have to monitor them too long. And then once you get that pop towards that $35, here we go, 65 to 170. So that's a nice pop. And then from 170 to 245. A lot of the premiums should struggle once it gets above 240. 240, 275. That's where you'll see these premiums normally stop printing unless a bigger catalyst comes along to keep it moving. Show you AMD. I told you somebody in here was gonna be holding AMD crazy. Right? I think AMD was at 519 last time we checked. Yeah, 519.17. And you got them 550s. Hey, let the print shop open. Yes, sir. Walmart. Now Walmart has it's been recovering fairly well. I'm not even gonna fake. Um, we are entering the wall between 115 and 116.68. Got up there, rejected, and coming back down. Let's see the support at 112 towards 112.44. I can't really call anything to the upside yet, just simply because it hasn't given me any upside projections. I still need some time to update. Weekly, it closed off bullish on the weekly, closed out bullish on the 2 weeks. So we probably get some upside projections going into next week. And that'll probably be around here, 120 to 121. Yeah, because if I stretch these out a little bit, so yeah, if I stretch those out, you see that's what support was till it became resistance. If it breaks out above 116, 117, and that's when we should see a justified move to 120. All right. Right now, buyers are trying to defend 112, but if they lose 112, we'll see it drop back down to 105. As far as the candle structures go, that was a nice candle that we had that day. It's kind of chopped sideways because it hasn't broken that wall yet, but that was a nice candle. Um, Nothing unusual on the weekly frame because these pops on the weekly frame look like they happen. That's normal for it. Sell off 1 week, pop the next, sell off, pop, sell off, pop. So, like I said, this big green candle that we closed off on the week, it shows strength because it closed up here when a lot of them wick back down. But the thing is, this is nothing new. It has sold off the week prior to that, but it might be good. It might be good. I'm gonna go back to AMD. We covered it. That was probably one of the first stocks. So I'm gonna get some of these knocked out, and then I'll cover that one for you again. But looking at Walmart, um, let me check the. We could be hopping up pretty good. I want to see it break above 117. I was checking out some contracts. Um, so we do want to do the 120s. If we look at the 120 strikes, we'll probably want to go. Let's go out to the 28, 120. Netflix calls. I think Netflix calls is good on leaps. They give you heartburn on short term though. You feel me? You be up one day and next thing you know, it just the bottom just fall out. All right, so for these 120s, these contracts hold up extremely well around 85 to $80, and they get a nice pop up towards 195. So you can get a nice $100 return on these 120 calls below 85. And it wants to come back up to 220. So because of the chop, like I said, you have to be extremely cautious with your entries on some of these stocks when you're trying to chase it back up to the upside. That's where I tell you guys, use me to your resources. If you're trying to get into something, let me know what contract you're in, and I can always give you the best entry prices. I know I'll be checking a lot of shit and doing stocks and all, like, checking charts, but it takes me literally 10 seconds, 15 seconds to check contract prices for you guys. So look at these around 80. And then if you even want to put some more time on it, let's go to the 4th, September 4th, 120s. You can put even more time on it. And these are actually starting to peak out pretty faster, above 220. So if these break out, then a lot of money is going to start flowing. If these break out above 220 and start pushing like 250-ish, then that's going to confirm that these are going to be a whole lot easier to go into money. So these are getting bought up below $100. So if you like Walmart to the upside, look for 120 calls at about 110, 110 or below, either September 4th call, so they give you plenty of time for it to flow back your way. Like I said, just watch out for the chop, because when we looked at the weekly charts, it gives us the same game plan right now. But once it takes 117, you'll see this weekly trend take hold, and we'll start trading. See this projection line right here? We'll overtake that, and that's when we'll push back up towards this 120, which is the top line right here. All right. So that's two confirmations right there for Walmart calls. Other than that, we could continue to chop down towards 105. This is where a lot of the next price action is, because this is where we're chopping at right now. This little area right here. The next area that we can drop to is this little chop zone right here between these highs and these lows. And actually, I'll drop this a little bit lower like that, because these wicks gave out pretty quickly. So you can see how we're stuck in here. They're buying it as soon as they enter here and push it back up. But if it decides to sell off some more, this would be the next round to start buying up shares or calls to accumulate back up towards 110. Try to keep the strike prices, 110, 115, 120. That way it holds up fairly well. Okay, I'm showing off those Tesla gains from 102, a bottom tick entry, sold at 970, peak over 800%, over 800%. Um, oh yeah, AMD. You wanted to know about the exit targets on AMD. All right, so right now AMD is at 518. Like I said, we just gonna have to see how the prices settle by open. We got the 550 strikes. Okay, and I was showing them how I determine my entry. We went to the 4 hour. We saw a bunch of consolidation between these tops and bottoms. That's 240 and 137. I signaled it at 244. All right, which was right as it started to come out of it. Right as it started to come out. So here's 245. Here's that candle that I signaled it off of right here. And this was my 30% exit that I took. And then later on, you guys saw it run up 98%. So as far as the exit right now, I can look up and see what the past exit points were. All right. All right, so yeah, right now we see the pop and those contracts hit. As of right now, we'll look at the first exit to be around 12:30. So we're getting in at 244, exiting above $1,200. And if it continues to run, then we'll see those 1,200 go to 800, 1,800. So this is normally be a major take price where you can take majority of those, take profit on those contracts. Like I said, beautiful pop from 244 to 1,200, and then you can trim those off. And if you want to leave runners, you can leave runners into the $1,800 mark, and then if it continues to go 2,500. So those are my extreme targets. But this 1,200 mark definitely should hit, especially with the pop. And if we get a gap and go in the morning, that'd be beautiful. That'd be beautiful, and that'll we should see. I'm thinking we see it top out around 1,200 tomorrow, but we'll have to see how it opens up. If everything follows suit. So yeah, it's right at that 518 mark. We'll see how it holds up. Last week projection levels was at 527, and we wanted to see prices actually hit at 522.43. So we're filling this gap right now, and the best thing that we can do is see the bulls turn this rejection zone right here into support and continue to push his way up. Like I said, we have some good trends showing. I like this new fucking projection indicator I made. That shit helps out. But this 1 hour will continue to see it ride its way up as long as these projections stay pushing to the upside. Everything's pointing up. This is a breakout above a sideways one. So everything's pointing to the up and up right now. We just need that same energy, tomorrow once the market opens. Yeah. So let's see how that shit open up in the morning, man. Hopefully. Well, I know you eating tomahawks every day. Too late to get in? Yeah. Yeah. I think it's too late right now. I think it's too late right now simply because the premiums are gonna be it's gonna be some euphoric, you know, feelings in the market tomorrow. But if we open and we get back down to like normal levels, 3 and 5. If we come back down to some of these normal levels, or we see like 500 again, 505, then like I said, I recommended taking, we could either take the 550s, or since the week's closing in, some of the delta be priced in, you might can go to the 535s because they held up well around 218. If I would have saw those in time, we probably would have took those instead, the 535s. But I think by the time I signaled it, they were already around like $500 or so. So I took the next thing down, which was those ones at 244. No FOMO unless it dips down. Correct. All right. And I said I look at some from my watch list from the previous Sunday, which did I do hood already? I don't remember if I did hood or Tesla. But if I didn't real quick, Tesla still looks dope. We have an uptrend. I want to see it to pop to 350 and 365. Those are my two targets. And see it work its way back up towards the gap fill at 373. So the contracts that I'll be looking at are the 365 calls. Well, let's look at the 350s. They probably gonna be high as shit, but let's see. All right, they not too bad. Not too bad. So these 350 calls for this week, they chopping between 210 and 405. So that's probably about a $200 gap that you can see prices start to um, trade in between. But anywhere in here is a pretty dope entry zone. I would say around 300 would be a sweet spot for the move back up and see these eventually take his ride back up. Mm, yeah, so these contracts last week was topping out around 845. And this is probably when we seen it hit 341 that Thursday or Friday. What I think it was Friday, whatever day it was that it ran extremely crazy. We seen it top out at 845. So, like I said, 300 would be the sweet spots for entries, and then we can watch this as long as the uptrend holds. Um, we can watch the money move back up and start to retest some of these prices. All right, Beast man, it's good to see you, bro. I'm finna wrap it up too, honestly, because I got to get up for the postal route tomorrow. But appreciate you hanging out, man, and let's get this money tomorrow. Keep crushing them plays, bro, for real. So yeah, Tesla 350 calls. Those are gonna be the ones on my watch list for that one, and then let's see. I did SpaceX. Beautiful calls on those. Going into next week, I want to see a retest of 149 and 154. A lot of the bears are going to start stacking up above 156. So, um, I will be looking at that. Let's see how these trends look. It's in a pretty decent uptrend. Yeah. So we're looking at let's look at 155 on the strike price for weeklies. Oh, look how much volatility is there. All right. So these contracts are that it's a crazy buy-in below 100. Like you getting these for crazy rinse and repeat prices. Below 100, it pops up and runs up to 345. Crazy returns, right? You ain't spending a ton of bread either. So entries for these are below 100. They typically hold up around $85, and then you can see the pop, easily see the pop back up 380, 385. Yeah, so that's easy bread. 332, 457. Easy money. So keep the 155s on your watch list, below $100, and then Robinhood. Let me see. We took a swing last week at Robinhood $100 calls. They went bananas, and it rejected. Now it's coming back down. So this week we'll want to see how it's gonna hold up between here. 95 and 93. I'm hoping that it uses this $95 level since it was resistant before the breakout. See if we can use this as support. I thought I saw something that I liked. I guess I did. I thought I saw an engulfing candle on one of these, but I guess I didn't. All right, Cal, bro. See you. See you in the morning, man. But yeah, I want to see these hood calls hold up well around 95, and then we can probably run it back to the $100 strikes. Yeah. So I said these $100 strikes are starting to fade price wise, simply because we've seen that slowdown on the Bitcoin side. These contracts hold up well below 140, and we could see a pop back up towards 275. So the fact that it's losing a little structure here, I'm gonna be weary on these $100 calls because I don't want these to fade under here too long and they start melting too quick. So let's look at the 28. All right, cool. So these are a lot healthier. These are a lot healthier. The 28th of August, $100 strikes. Look for entries around 225 on these. 225, you get the pop to 265 and 345. So you can make about $100. You can rinse and repeat $100. If even if it does trade sideways, you can keep rinsing and repeating this 225 to 345 because it typically hits every other day. Every other day it typically hits. So um yeah, add the $100 strikes for August 28th on your watch list, and this is what we're gonna work with. Going into this week. You ain't gotta watch a whole bunch of stocks. Just have a good game plan for just a handful, and you can make money on those all day. All right. So hopefully everybody got in, early enough to be able to see some good due diligence or get all your questions and everything answered to see what the plan is for tomorrow. Yeah. So, but I guess we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. I know it held you guys for what, maybe an hour 20 right now. So time flies by when you got some good due diligence and everything going on. But we gonna get to it in the morning. Hope everybody watch listed this, took some notes, so that way if there's anything that I missed, you guys could take these notes and hop in with or without me. Shit, get an alert too. We all here to make money at the end of the day. So I appreciate everybody for tapping in this weekend. Give me a little time um, on your busy weekends. I know we supposed to be resting, but education is important. You feel me? And I'll see all you guys in the morning. Peace.